During a fight, my girlfriend posted on Facebook, 100 likes and we're over. So when her post hit 99 likes, I quietly added the last one, bringing the total to 100 and granting Chloe her wish to break up. From that day forward, I stopped following Chloe, actively avoiding any and all contact with her. 10 days later, Chloe's best friend sent me an iMessage. Chloe's been waiting for you to give in. Tomorrow's her birthday. If you show up with a new sports car to celebrate, you two will get back together. I read it and simply replied with 2 words, not free. I really wasn't free. My flight back to my hometown for my engagement was scheduled to take off the next day. Chloe, just as you wanted, we're done for good. Every time we argued, she would say, 3 days of the silent treatment means we've broken up. We were together for 7 years, and she had me wrapped around her finger with that line for all 7 of them. That is, until last weekend. I had cooked a full spread of her favorite dishes, but she stood me up again. After a moment of silence, I mechanically opened her first love's Facebook page. His post read, shout out to someone special. I mention my shoulder is sore, and she drops her boyfriend to come right over. Please keep up this admirable quality of putting friends before romance. The picture showed Chloe on a couch, massaging his arm. His head was resting in her lap, his face brushing uncomfortably close to her inner thigh. I didn't break down and start a fight like I used to. I just calmly liked the post, sent her a text breaking up, and decided to go home for the arranged marriage my family wanted. My breakup message was met with complete silence. Instead, it was Leo who sent me a video. In a noisy private room at a bar, Chloe's friends were laughing. Ethan's been kissing the ground you walk on for 7 years, and now he dares to break up with you? He can't be serious, can he? Chloe, slicing a mango cheesecake, said dismissively. He's just throwing a tantrum, trying to guilt me into going back to him. I was actually going to head back after I finished Leo's massage. But the more he acts like this, the less I'm going to indulge him. I'll give him the cold shoulder for a few days. As she spoke, she held a piece of cake up to Leo's mouth. It's the new one from CC Bakery. See if you like it. Her friends started teasing, winking at each other. Ethan's just a stand-in anyway. Why not just break up with him? The real deal is back now. Aren't you two going to get together? Yeah, Leo, you're the only one Chloe's really cared about all these years. Chloe didn't say anything, just stared at Leo with an intense, hopeful gaze. What are you guys talking about? Chloe and I are just good friends, purely platonic, he said, feigning surprise. He gave her nose a playful tap. You'd better go patch things up with your boyfriend, or I'll never be able to clear my name. The light in Chloe's eyes faded a little, and her voice was strained. Don't worry. All I have to do is crook my finger and he'll come running back. I watched the video completely numb. I had already decided to move on, but my heart still ached with a bitter pang. After all, she was the girl I had fallen for at first sight, the person I had loved for 7 whole years. I confessed my feelings to her during Thanksgiving of our freshman year. I knew she was the beautiful, aloof girl on campus who had coldly turned down countless guys. Confessing was just my way of making sure I had no regrets. But under the moonlight, she studied my face for a long moment, then suddenly broke into a radiant smile and nodded. All right, boyfriend, let's see what the future holds. I thought I would forever remember the thrill and beauty of that moment. Until one day, in the heat of a passionate kiss, she murmured, Leo. I froze completely. That was the first time we gave each other the silent treatment. 3 days later, she showed up with a cupcake to make up. He was just a guy I used to have a crush on, she said. That's all. Seeing the dark circles under her eyes, I softened and we made up. Back then, I was confident that Leo wouldn't come between us. He was just her first love, the one that got away when she was young, a past that had never even started. I was her boyfriend, her present, and her future. Throughout our 4 years of college, I loved her with everything I had. After graduation, I followed her to this unfamiliar city, even cutting ties with my family to do so. She was good to me, too. She'd be the first to buy me new items from the trendy CC Bakery. She'd gently and patiently blow-dry my hair and iron my shirts. Her anniversary gifts were always things I loved. There were no flowery words, but our life was filled with a quiet, comfortable warmth. I once believed we would go from college sweethearts to husband and wife, spending the rest of our lives together. Until 6 months ago, when Leo moved back from abroad. When he casually remarked, "So you really did find a boyfriend who looks like me," the truth began to tear me apart, piece by cruel piece. It turned out she had only said yes to me to compensate for the regret of never being with Leo. The CC Bakery cakes she always bought were his favorite. All the thoughtful things she did for me were just things he had once said he'd want in a future girlfriend. She was just using me, a substitute, to ease her loneliness, all while practicing on me to become the perfect woman for him. I remembered something she'd said during a tender moment. Ethan, let's get married on our 7th anniversary. You left your home and family for me, so from now on, I'll spend every Thanksgiving with you. This Thanksgiving marked exactly 7 years since we got together. But clearly, she had forgotten all about it. It was better that she forgot. I was going home for an arranged marriage anyway. The clock struck midnight, and Chloe still wasn't home. In the past, I would have been tormented, unable to sleep a wink. But tonight, I slept surprisingly well. I guess letting go of someone who isn't worth it is a way of setting yourself free. Early the next morning, I was woken by sounds coming from the kitchen. Chloe was there, wearing an apron, her slender arms working a spatula as she reheated all the dishes from last night. I'm making up for Thanksgiving today, she said, tasting a piece of sweet and sour pork off the spatula. Your cooking is pretty good. I stared at her, surprised. Chloe was always meticulous about her lifestyle. She never ate leftovers. She looked up, waiting for my reaction. I realized then that this exception to her rule was her way of placating me. She was waiting for me to take the olive branch she was offering. In the past, it would have worked. But now I just shook my head. Don't bother. No need to make up for Thanksgiving, and certainly no need to placate me. Chloe's brow furrowed. She turned, took out a slice of cake, and pushed it towards me. Your favorite from CC Bakery. It's the new one. I looked at the leftover slice of cake, covered in mango, and felt a sharp sting in my heart. The truth is, I don't even like sweets that much. What I had always found sweet was the gesture, the thought behind it. But after 7 years, she knew every single one of Leo's preferences by heart, yet she couldn't even remember that I'm allergic to mangoes. I sat in silence, the realization dawning on me just how worthless these 7 years had been. Her patience was clearly wearing thin. All right, that's enough, she said, trying to keep her temper in check. I've given you plenty of chances to back down. If Leo hadn't convinced me, I wouldn't have come back to make up this soon. And don't you dare mention breaking up ever again. So that was it. Even this attempt to make up was for Leo's sake. Chloe, I'm serious, I said slowly. I am breaking up with you. I'm going home to get married. The rest of what I was saying was cut off by her custom ringtone for him. Leo, she answered, her voice instantly softening as a smile lit up her eyes. Okay, I'm on my way. After hanging up, her expression reverted to its usual cool indifference. Leo needs me. I have to go. Just like always, she turned and left without waiting for me to reply. But this time, I didn't watch her go. With nothing else to do during the long weekend, I decided to go into the office. I could leave for good once I resigned after the holiday. Getting my files in order now would make the handover process smoother. I worked until evening, then left the office and headed straight for a trendy, Instagram-famous restaurant nearby. Besides having great reviews, it was rumored that couples who took a picture together there were destined to last. I had tried to bring Chloe here several times, but she always had an excuse. Now, on the verge of leaving the city, I decided to finally go on my own. I never expected to see Chloe and Leo the moment I walked in the door. They were sitting side by side, nestled close together. The table was covered with spicy dishes and seafood, things he loved but she couldn't eat. She didn't eat spicy food or seafood. I was always the one who accommodated her tastes. But it turned out she had someone she was willing to accommodate too. Neither of them saw me. He laughed as he fed her a piece of spicy chicken he'd just taken a bite of. It's good you have half, he said, his fingers lingering for a moment against the corner of her mouth. A slow blush crept across Chloe's face. In my memory, she had always been as cool and distant as the moon. It turned out that at 25, she could still blush with the shyness of a first crush, but only for the person she truly loved. Leo, can we take a picture together? Chloe asked, trying to sound casual, but her eyes betrayed her nervousness and hope. Leo didn't answer. He just smiled and gave her a little push. Then suddenly, his head snapped up and his eyes met mine. He had a smirk on his face, like he was watching a show, waiting for me to lose control like I always did. And I'd had countless meltdowns over their relationship. On Valentine's Day, he'd called her away because he didn't feel like finishing a presentation and wanted her to do it for him. When I was in the hospital with pneumonia, he said he was feeling down, so she chose to stay with him instead. Late one night, she rushed out in a panic to find him just because he was slow to reply to her texts. They ended up drinking wine and talking all night, just as friends, she'd said. I had screamed. I had begged without a shred of dignity, but her response was always a cold, "Don't be dramatic. Chloe had made every excuse in the book to avoid coming here with me, and now I knew why. The person she wanted to take that special photo with wasn't me. A realization like that would have shattered the old me. But I understand now. The person who doesn't care about you can't see your pain. They just see you as being loud. I just looked at them calmly. What are you looking at me for? Do you need someone to take the picture for you? Chloe froze, a flicker of embarrassment in her eyes quickly turning to defensive anger. Ethan, are you following us? What's with the sarcastic attitude? You're the one who threw a fit and broke up with me, and you ignored me when I tried to make up. I'm just having dinner with an old friend. Is there a problem with that? Do you have any idea how suffocating this is? This kind of behavior just pushes me further away. She rarely ever said that much to me at once. It wasn't because she was nervous or cared about me. It was because she had a guilty conscience. It doesn't matter, I said flatly. I'm just here to eat. And for the record, we're broken up. Whatever you two do is none of my business. Leo raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by my reaction. Ethan, don't say things you don't mean, he said slowly, deliberately. I mentioned I wasn't feeling well today. That's the only reason Chloe spent the day with me. Don't get the wrong idea. We're just friends. His eyes were filled with a smugness he couldn't hide. I never used to understand why he'd spend so much time stringing her along if he had no intention of being with her. But it didn't matter to me anymore. I had no interest in figuring it out. I ignored them, found an empty table with my back to them, and opened the menu. In the past, seeing something like this would have sent me storming out of the restaurant. But I hadn't done anything wrong. I was just here to finally try a meal I'd been looking forward to. I ordered a feast for myself, all the things I love to eat. I didn't have to accommodate anyone else's tastes anymore. As the spicy, aromatic dishes arrived one by one, I felt a wave of relief that I hadn't let other people ruin a good meal for me. I couldn't see them, but their voices carried. When did you get so reserved? I remember you being really good at cheering people up. A light, familiar patting sound. I didn't have to look to know it was Leo, giving her a playful tap. After I bombed that math test in 8th grade, a bouquet of my favorite baby's breath showed up on my desk every day. I found out later it was you trying to cheer me up. In 9th grade, when I was stressing about exams, you'd write down inspirational quotes for me every day. In high school, you brought me breakfast without fail, walked me home rain or shine, and even set alarms in the middle of the night to snag limited edition collectibles for me online. How come you can't show your boyfriend that same kind of patience? Every word dripped with superiority, a deliberate reminder of her devotion. Chloe was quiet for a moment before answering, a defiant edge to her voice. He's not you. I kept eating as if I hadn't heard a thing, though the spice in the food nearly brought tears to my eyes. 7 years of my life, and that's all it amounted to. I had spent countless nights wondering what I was doing wrong, why she didn't seem to love me enough. Turns out it was never my fault at all. She had given all her heart and passion to someone else long ago, and she was still addicted. And it was time for me to finally get over her. Chloe didn't come home that night or the nights after. This was her usual tactic after a fight. No explanations, no apologies. Just the silent treatment, designed to make me spiral into self-doubt until I broke. Then she would offer a half-hearted apology, and I would cave. But I only felt that pain because I loved her. Now, I no longer cared. I started packing my things. The apartment was filled with matching couples' items that I had picked out, but I realized very few things in it were actually mine. I realized it had been a long time since I had truly been myself. After the holiday weekend, I officially submitted my resignation. My manager signed off on it without any fuss. Heading back to New York? I guess that means things are getting serious with you and director Chloe. Huh. I shook my head. I'm going back alone. He laughed. Don't be modest. My buddy is in HR over at Sterling Corporation. He told me your director Chloe already applied for a transfer to the New York headquarters. There's even a spousal accommodation program for jobs. She submitted the forms and everything. Who else would it be for? Honestly, a guy with your degree from a top university, leaving home to do admin work in a small firm like ours. You've really been slumming it. Good to see it's finally paying off. I was stunned. Chloe had never mentioned any of this to me. We were both in the design field, a profession known for its grueling hours. She said one of us had to be more focused on our home life, so I became that person. While she was making a name for herself in the industry, I was just an admin at a different firm. The spouse Chloe was bringing along probably wasn't me. But I didn't correct him. My manager was right about one thing, though. My hard times were over. That evening, my department threw a farewell party for me. As the party wound down, I was walking, slightly buzzed, down the hallway when I heard a familiar voice. Through the half-open door of a private room, I saw Chloe. Her face was flushed from drinking, her expression complicated in the dim light. "Do you regret not bringing Ethan with you?" "No. I did originally apply for the transfer for him. He cut ties with his family for me all those years ago, and I know it's been hard on him. I thought I could go back to New York with him, but when Leo asked, I just couldn't say no." Her friend shook her head. "Haven't you considered that if Leo hasn't wanted to be with you after all these years, moving to New York isn't going to change that?" Chloe pressed her lips together and gave a self-deprecating smile. "You have to give something your all just once. This is my last shot. If Leo still doesn't want me, then I'll finally give up and settle down with Ethan." My fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. When Leo first came back, I honestly thought I had a fighting chance. He was just a fantasy, but I was the one who had been by her side for years. All that history, all those memories, I thought that was my strength. But it turned out she had never woken up from her dream. And what on earth made her think I would wait around for her forever? "Ethan?" Leo was walking over from the restrooms, a rare, guarded look in his eyes. "You heard, didn't you? It doesn't matter. The paperwork has already been submitted. I'm getting that position, and there's nothing you can do about it." It all clicked into place. The reason Leo was willing to play his hot and cold games with her, to keep her hanging on, was because he saw her as a means to an end. But one thing still bothered me. If you were just using her and never actually liked her, why did you go out of your way to rub her affection for you in my face? All those taunting Facebook posts and text messages, he never needed to send them. He crossed his arms and chuckled. "I guess even if it's something I don't want, I don't like seeing someone else enjoy it." I suddenly found it pathetic. In a way, Chloe was just like me. She had wasted years of sincere affection on someone who treated her like a thing. As I turned to leave, he blocked my path. "And right now, I don't want her leaving with any guilt over you." Suddenly, Leo clapped his hands together hard, making a loud crack, and then let out a cry of pain. Chloe burst out of the room and shoved me hard. "I think your boyfriend has a problem with the job transfer," Leo said, clutching his perfectly unharmed face. My head slammed against the wall. When I reached up to touch it, my fingers came away bloody. But all I saw in her eyes was rage. The sound of a sharp slap echoed in the hall. Before she could say a word, I swung my hand and slapped Leo across the face. "That one wasn't for me," I said, "but this one is." She shoved me, her face a mask of disbelief. "Ethan, you're acting like a lunatic. You wanted to break up, right? Fine, I agree. So who I end up with is none of your business. I'm not going to be the one to make up this time. Let's see if you can keep from coming back to me." She shot me a glare, then ushered Leo back into the room and slammed the door in my face. The loud bang of the door separated our two worlds. I never imagined this would be our ugly, undignified end. I slowly turned and walked away. The cut on my head throbbed, and a strange pain echoed it in my chest. But at least I knew that no matter how painful or humiliating, wounds eventually heal. This too would pass. That night, I got on a plane, leaving behind the city where I'd spent the last 3 years, and finally headed home. Knowing Chloe's pride, I was sure I would never hear from her again. We would simply fade out of each other's lives completely. But a week later, to my surprise, she sent me an iMessage. "Still being stubborn? You'd rather hide away and be miserable than talk to me? What are you up to?" I was busy all day and didn't see her messages until that night. I replied simply, "Just got engaged. Can you stop being so dramatic? I know how things work in New York. People don't have formal engagements, unless it's some kind of arranged marriage between powerful families. Are you part of a powerful family? I know you're just trying to make me jealous, so I'll come running back to you, but you could at least make your lies believable." I stared at the screen, stunned. I never thought Chloe would reply instantly, let alone with a barrage of messages. I was always the one left waiting. I never thought I'd finally get the instant replies I'd always craved, but only after we broke up. But I didn't want them anymore. After all, we were broken up. Chloe wasn't entirely wrong. I had faked being sick a few times after Leo came back. It was just that she would get so worked up over the smallest thing concerning Leo, and I wanted her to care about me that way. But all it did was make me realize I was just making a fool of myself. It was pathetic. I looked at the screen full of her messages and didn't reply. In the past, she would have gotten angry and blocked me by now. But a few moments later, she called. I looked at the screen light up with her name, and without a second's hesitation, I declined the call and blocked her number. We were really broken up. I had initiated it, and she had accepted it. A good ex is one who disappears from your life. Besides, I was engaged now. I would not get entangled with her ever again. She wasn't wrong, though. People in New York don't usually have formal engagements. It's just that the Anderson and Sterling families were from old money. My family, the Andersons, are in real estate. The Sterlings are in industrial manufacturing. Sterling Corp, the company Chloe was transferring to, was one of the Sterling family's assets. My fiancée, Isabella Sterling, was currently running Sterling Corp as its CEO. Isabella and I had known each other since we were kids, but she had always been the prodigy everyone else was compared to. She was a year younger than me, but while I was still in elementary school, she was already being accepted into early entry programs at Ivy League universities. By the time I was just getting through my SATs, she had already rotated through every division of her family's conglomerate. Then she took over Sterling Corp, which had been losing money for years, and in just 3 years, she turned it into an industry leader with branches nationwide. So our paths rarely crossed. We were all considered privileged, but she was in a league of her own. To be honest, when I agreed to the arrangement, I never thought the marriage would actually happen. After all, with her capabilities, she didn't need to follow her family's plans. But she agreed. The engagement party was planned entirely around my preferences. I said I wanted to keep it low-key, and she agreed. So the venue was elegant but understated, with only our immediate families and closest friends in attendance. In front of our families, she looked at me with a serious yet gentle expression as she slid the ring onto my finger. "Ethan," she said, "my life used to be all about work, but from now on, you are an essential part of it." She gave me the utmost respect and consideration. Amidst a chorus of compliments about what a perfect match we were, I called her Isabella and responded with a polite smile and my own vows. I didn't feel a thrill, but I felt a deep sense of peace. She had a reputation for always keeping her word. Even if we never fell in love, I knew I wouldn't have to worry about her loyalty or about being someone's second choice ever again. I had spent 7 years only to end up with a heart full of scars. A stable marriage like this, which benefited both our families, was the best possible outcome. Exhausted after a long day of engagement festivities, I collapsed onto my bed just as a video call from my best friend, Michael, came through. "Ethan, Chloe was desperately trying to find you tonight. Didn't she agree to the breakup? Don't tell me she's having second thoughts." Michael went to college with us and had witnessed our entire relationship. He, along with my parents, had been strongly against my decision to move for Chloe. "I get that relationships are about compromise," he'd said, "but why are you always the one compromising? Career-wise, New York has way more opportunities than her small town. Why didn't you try to convince her to stay?" Of course, I had tried, but no matter what I said, her answer was always the same. "My family is there. My friends are there." Finally, she suggested, "We could just do long distance." I couldn't stand the thought of it. I was afraid of what long distance would do to us. I wanted to see her every day. Back then, I had confidently told my family that we would be fine. The only piece of advice I took was to not tell her about my family's wealth. I was so sure that one day I would bring her home and prove to everyone that I had made the right choice. Back then, I thought it was brave to risk everything for love. Now, it just seems foolish. I told Michael, "We're really done." I blocked her. As for regrets, I doubt it. It's more likely she's just upset that she's lost control over me. Good. I heard Chloe is transferring to the Sterling Corp headquarters and bringing a spouse with her. What's up with that? By the way, you're starting there tomorrow too, right? Isn't that going to be incredibly awkward? I wasn't worried. It'll be fine. She's the director of Design Team B, and I'll be in Design Team A. I studied design, and Sterling Corp was the best company in the field. So when my family suggested I work there, mentioning it would be a good way to get to know Isabella better, I agreed. However, I turned down the offer of a senior designer position. I wanted to start from the bottom. I've been working in admin since graduation, so my portfolio was lacking. I needed to build it back up through my own hard work. The position I earned should be based on my abilities, not my connections. Just like Isabella herself, who had also started from an entry-level position. Since we were to be partners, I wanted us to be equals. Sterling Corp was a massive company, and the two design teams were in different buildings. The chances of running into her were slim. And honestly, even if I did see her, so what? She would have Leo with her. I wasn't the one with anything to hide. If we happened to cross paths, I would just walk on by. The next day, I officially started work. The pace at a big corporation was fast. Lacking experience, I put in extra hours to catch up. Fortunately, Isabella was also a workaholic, so we didn't get in each other's way. When I worked late, her assistant would bring me dinner from her private chef. On weekends, we would have dinner together with our families. For two people starting with no romantic history, this polite distance felt just right. I barely thought about Chloe at all. I did occasionally wonder about Leo. He had been so determined to get into Sterling Corp, and I still wasn't sure why. It was strange, though. Despite Sterling Corp being highly selective, you'd think someone with a degree from a prestigious overseas university could pass an interview. He had to rely on Chloe's spousal accommodation to get in. Half a month went by. I didn't hear any news from Design Team B, and my curiosity was limited anyway. I focused on my own work. I just never expected to run into Chloe so soon. That day, our team had a design proposal that needed to be delivered to the marketing department. The marketing department, Design Team B, and the CEO's office were all in the same building. I had plans to meet Isabella after work to go to her family's estate for dinner, so I offered to drop it off. And just my luck, while waiting for the elevator, I ran into Chloe. "Ethan," she called my name through the crowd, her voice tight with anger. I turned around and was taken aback. She had always been beautiful, of course, maintaining that cool, elegant image. But now, she looked exhausted, with deep, dark circles under her eyes, as if she hadn't slept in days. Before I could react, she had grabbed my arm and pulled me into the stairwell. She backed me into a corner, staring at me intently. Her chest was heaving, nearly pressing against mine, and her eyes were a mix of suppressed rage and something else I couldn't quite decipher. The proximity made me deeply uncomfortable. I held up the file folder I was carrying to create some space between us. Her eyes dropped to the folder, recognizing it as a design proposal. "So, you're working at Sterling Corp too?" For some reason, the tension in her face seemed to relax, and the corners of her mouth even turned up slightly. "Was this fun for you?" she asked, her tone suddenly lighter. "What?" I didn't understand. "Stop playing dumb," she said, giving me a little shove. "You talk a big game about breaking up, you ignore my messages, you even block me, and then you secretly follow me all the way to New York. Do you have any idea how worried I've been? I found out you quit your job and I've been looking for you everywhere. I almost believed you when you said you were getting engaged." She let out a sudden laugh. How could I have fallen for that? So ridiculous. I looked at Chloe, at the absolute certainty on her face that I was still hopelessly in love with her, and I found it absurd. Yes, I had loved her. I really had. But the Ethan who had eyes only for her was gone, and she was the one who had thrown him away. "Let go of me," I said, pushing her hand away. She just laughed. "I won't. Not unless you kiss me." My expression turned to ice as I pried her fingers off my arm. She winced, clutching her arm and staring at me in disbelief. "Ethan, I'm trying so hard to make up with you. How long are you going to keep this up?" "Okay, yes, I gave the job to Leo, but I only kept it from you because I knew you'd overreact. I was going to tell you once things settled down. Besides, this is your hometown. It's not like it was hard for you to come back. And look, you got a job at Sterling Corp all by yourself, so no harm done, right? Can you please stop being so petty? The workload here is insane, and I'm exhausted. I can't deal with this drama." It was a rare occasion for her to offer such a lengthy explanation, but I was unmoved. My voice was pure sarcasm. "What's the matter? Did you finally realize Leo is never going to want you, so you decided to come back to your second choice?" Her face froze. "You heard us that night?" She opened her mouth as if to explain, but the sound of hurried footsteps approaching cut her off. Leo appeared, a look of surprise and accusation on his face. "Ethan, what are you doing here? I thought you two broke up. What is this? Are you trying to get back together?" Chloe's expression immediately tensed up. I got it. She still hadn't given up on Leo. So what gave her the right to come crawling back to me? Michael had been right. This was going to be a scene. Except, this was Chloe's mess, not mine. I didn't say a word. I already knew who Chloe would choose. Countless times in the past, when forced to choose between me and Leo, she had always chosen him. I didn't know what had happened in the last 2 weeks, but Leo's tone was almost accusatory, as if he wasn't the one who had been stringing her along all this time. He was acting as if he were the wronged party. But I didn't need to explain anything. Chloe would smooth things over with him. But this time, to my surprise, Chloe remained silent. For the first time ever, she didn't immediately rush to his side. Leo was clearly taken aback. The usual smug confidence in his eyes faltered for a second. "And here I was, actually considering giving you a chance," he scoffed. "Turns out you were never serious. Fine. I hope you two are very happy together." His face hardened, and he turned and stormed off. His heavy footsteps echoed down the hall like a string of accusations. Chloe finally snapped out of it. She hesitated for a moment, then turned to me. "Ethan, I'll explain later." She took a few steps, then turned back. Breaking up was just something you said because you were angry. I never agreed. You're still my boyfriend. Before I could respond, she was already hurrying after Leo. I stood there holding my folder, momentarily speechless. Seemed Leo was right. Someone was trying to cling to the past, and that someone was Chloe. But claiming we were still together while literally chasing after another man was just absurd. But it had nothing to do with me anymore. I wasn't going back. It didn't matter if she didn't want to break up. I pushed open the stairwell door and headed to the marketing department. The guy in marketing had a few questions about the proposal. Seeing I was new, he hesitated. You know what? I'll just follow up with someone else later. No need, I said. I was involved in the entire process. I can answer your questions. I then walked him through the points he was unsure about. The marketing director, who was passing by, overheard and stopped. New guy in design team A? Not bad. My marketing colleague looked apologetic. Sorry, my mistake. It's just that the new guy from team B, Leo, is completely clueless. He's always causing problems. I just assumed all the new hires were like that. Someone nearby shook their head. He got the job through the spousal accommodation program, but he's supposed to have a master's from a top overseas university. You think he bought his degree? A thought struck me. I remembered how Leo could have just applied for a job directly, but instead went through the trouble of having Chloe get him in. Could the recent subtle shift in his attitude towards Chloe be because things weren't going well for him at work? In Chloe's eyes, Leo had always been this perfect, godlike figure, brilliant, charming, and flawless. But you learn a lot about a person's true capabilities when you work with them day in and day out. I wondered how much of that first love filter she viewed him through was left. Apparently enough for her to go chasing after him. But in the end, their drama had nothing to do with me. I wasn't interested in their relationship and only mildly curious about Leo's secrets. I left the marketing department and was on my way to Isabella's office when someone blocked my path. We need to talk. I just hadn't expected it to be Leo. I looked at him in silence. This was the man who had caused me so much pain, so many sleepless nights over the last 6 months. In the beginning, I had actually gone to him myself. I told him straight up that if he loved Chloe, I would step aside. I knew you couldn't force happiness. But Leo had just looked at me with that familiar mix of contempt and pity. It was the way he always looked at me, as if he saw himself at the top of our little love triangle, always looking down on me. He had just chuckled at my pained offer. No wonder Chloe says being with you is exhausting. We're just friends. It's a simple, platonic relationship. Why do you have to make it into something more? You can't just lock her away from the world because you're insecure. His denial was so transparent, his smugness so infuriating. But there was nothing I could do about it, because I loved Chloe. Since he didn't love her, I thought that if I just loved her enough, she would eventually see that I was the one she was meant to be with. But that was all in the past. Now, Leo was trying to put on that same superior air, but the exhaustion in his eyes betrayed a new lack of confidence. I underestimated you, he said, his eyes hostile. I thought you were just some simple, naive guy. I didn't realize you were so manipulative, playing the victim to get what you want. Now Chloe's all worried about you. Are you happy now? I was getting tired of this. Did these people just not listen? I've already broken up with Chloe, I repeated for what felt like the 100th time. Leo just sneered. Save it. You can use that line on Chloe, but I'm not buying it. I know your history. I know how obsessed you are with her. Besides, after 7 years with one person, do you really think any other woman would want you? I stared at him, speechless. It was astounding that someone who had studied abroad could have such a backward, misogynistic mindset. He thought he'd struck a nerve and his smug tone returned. Just like you can't get over Chloe, she can't get over me. She's only paying attention to you now because you're playing games. But you saw what happened just now. All I had to do was snap my fingers, and she still chose me. I realized talking to him was pointless. We were speaking different languages. So what is it you want from me? I'm saying I've changed my mind, he said, tilting his chin up. Now that we're working at the same company, I've realized how impressive Chloe has become. So while she's my backup plan, I don't want you bothering her. If I succeed in becoming the CEO's husband, I don't mind letting you have her back. But if that doesn't work out, settling for Chloe wouldn't be so bad. I'll take her. So until I've made my decision, I want you to stay away from her. No more games, no more manipulation, or there will be consequences. Understand? I listened to his rambling speech, my initial amusement turning into genuine shock. The CEO's husband? So that's why Leo was so desperate to get into Sterling Corporation. He was after Isabella. So, to summarize, He was hitting on my fiancée and warning me to stay away from my ex. The audacity was breathtaking. But where on earth did he get this confidence? You know Isabella? Or more to the point, does she know you? I asked, highly skeptical. After all, Isabella was a notorious workaholic with a non-existent dating history. When she first heard that I, her betrothed, was in love with someone else, her reaction had been mild. She'd said it would let her focus on her work. A woman like her must have had countless men pursuing her, but she was famously immune to romance, never even being the subject of a single gossip column. It had gotten to the point where her parents had started to gently question her preferences, but to no avail. Her agreeing to this engagement, her consideration for my feelings, and her willingness to build a relationship with me had made her parents ecstatic. The way they looked at me, you'd think I was a saint, not just their future son-in-law. Looking at Leo's baffling confidence, I could have just told him who I was. But I had joined the company quietly because I wanted to prove myself on my own merits. The moment people found out I was Isabella's fiancé, everything would change. That wasn't what I wanted, so I kept my identity to myself. Leo glanced at me. Of course I've met her. She was a guest lecturer at my university when I was studying abroad. She's an honorary alumna, actually, so you could say I'm her junior. I've watched all of her interviews. She once mentioned her type is men with long eyelashes. I worked hard to get here just to be closer to her, to give her a chance to notice me and fall in love with me. He spoke with such passion, and it suddenly hit me how similar people are when they're infatuated. So ridiculous, so self-unaware, so foolishly optimistic. I couldn't help but laugh. He shot me a wary look. What are you laughing at? Don't think just because you kind of look like me and have long eyelashes you have a shot with her. A guy who's been with another woman for 7 years? You're used goods. She wouldn't even look at you. Look like you. When I first met him, I didn't think we looked alike at all. Not until I saw an old photo of him from middle school, with his clear eyes and long lashes. But 7 years had passed. The innocence in his eyes was long gone. We looked nothing alike anymore. You should look in a mirror sometime, I said, and walked away. When I got to Isabella's office, she was in the middle of an international conference call, but she paused it to make me a cup of tea and bring out some pastries. They were all my favorites, and they were all fresh. I only stopped by her office occasionally, but she always had them on hand for me. It was a thoughtful gesture. I remembered what Leo had said about her liking men with long eyelashes. Could it be that she actually liked me? I immediately dismissed the thought as ridiculous. If she had feelings for me, she'd had plenty of opportunities to say something over the years, but she never had. Her type was probably just an off-the-cuff remark she'd made to get people to stop asking. After her meeting, we took the private elevator down to the parking garage. The driver was pulling out smoothly when he suddenly slammed on the brakes. I never would have guessed that Leo would be standing in the CEO's private parking garage. He yelped in pain, but when he looked up and saw me, whatever he had planned to say died in his throat. His voice was shrill with shock. "Ethan, what are you doing in Ms. Sterling's car?" Leo glared at me, but I was under no obligation to answer him. Clearly, Isabella had no intention of answering him either. The driver got out of the car. "Are you an employee here? This is a restricted garage. How did you get in?" Leo seemed to snap back to reality, remembering why he was there. He composed himself and put on an apologetic expression. "Oh, is it? I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I'm new here, still getting my bearings. I was just so focused on a design problem that I must have wandered in here by mistake." As he spoke, he fluttered his eyelashes in a way that was so deliberate you could tell he'd practiced it in a mirror. Watching his clumsy performance, I couldn't help but contrast it with the effortless way he had always manipulated Chloe. Back then, he had been so nonchalant, yet so confident and in control. It seemed that when faced with someone he was actually trying to impress, he could be just as awkward as anyone else. He looked like a clown. I suddenly wondered if this was how I had looked to Chloe during all my breakdowns and arguments. It's true what they say about being too close to see things clearly. I glanced at Isabella. Thank God, in our respectful, stable future, I would never again be that ugly, out-of-control person. Leo continued his performance, trying his best to be charming, all the while sneaking glances at Isabella to see her reaction. Unfortunately for him, Isabella didn't spare him a single glance. The driver, sensing her impatience, said, "Please leave now." Leo's face fell. This cold dismissal was a far cry from the charming meet-cute he had probably envisioned. But he wasn't one to give up easily. He paused, then jogged over to my side of the car and peered through the half-open window. "Ethan, I thought that was you. What are you doing in Ms. Sterling's car? Does your girlfriend, Chloe, know about this? After 7 years together, I think she deserves to know what you're up to. His eyes were filled with a malice that said he wanted to destroy me, but he forced a casual tone, as if he were just making an innocent observation. Then he turned his gaze to Isabella. I'm sorry, Miss Sterling. I'm just a blunt person. I tend to speak my mind. I hope I haven't ruined your evening. I really didn't mean to intrude. I'll leave now. He flashed her a smile and fluttered his eyelashes again, but made no move to leave. Only after the driver prompted him again, and it became clear Isabella was going to continue ignoring him, did he finally walk away, looking dejected. After Leo was gone, Isabella turned to me. Should I take care of him? She made a throat-slitting gesture. I sat bolt upright. I was under the impression the Sterling family wasn't involved in organized crime. I signed up for a stable marriage, not to be a mob boss's husband. Isabella stared at me for a second, stunned, and then her usually serious eyes lit up with amusement. What are you thinking? She said, giving me a light tap on the arm. I meant, should I have him fired? I haven't looked into your past, so I don't know what your relationship is with him. But he's obviously trouble, and if he's going to upset my fiancé, I don't want him around. I was taken aback. Since our engagement, Isabella and I had had some physical contact. We had exchanged rings, hugged, and kissed each other on the cheek at the engagement party. We often walked arm in arm in the garden after our family dinners. But this was the first time she had done something so naturally affectionate. It reminded me of how Chloe used to give me little playful taps when we first started dating. Back then, her eyes had been so full of tenderness. And yet, look where we ended up. The love and sweetness I thought I would never forget had long since faded away. I sighed internally. When I looked up, Isabella was still waiting patiently for my answer. Not wanting her to see the complicated emotions swirling inside me, I forced a smile. Firing an employee just for me? Wouldn't that be a bit of an abuse of power, Ms. CEO? Public or private, he deserves to be fired, Isabella said, her tone serious now. There are multiple, clearly marked signs leading to this garage. If he can't see them, that's a clear sign of incompetence. She glanced at her phone. I had my assistant look him up 3 minutes ago. Leo was hired under the spousal accommodation program as a family member of Chloe, the director of Design Team B. We gave him a designer position based on his resume, which listed an overseas master's degree. However, his performance reports indicate he is not competent for the role. So from a professional standpoint, he's not a good fit. HR will now verify his credentials. If his resume is found to be fraudulent, it becomes a legal matter. She laid it out so clearly and logically that I couldn't argue. At the same time, I felt a strange pang of disappointment. So it wasn't about me. She was just firing him for professional reasons. I nodded. Okay, then follow the procedure. As the car drove towards the estate, I expected Isabella to ask about Chloe. Leo had made a point of mentioning our 7 years together. I didn't think I had done anything wrong in that 7-year relationship, but I knew how it might look to others, especially when compared to Isabella, who was so brilliant and accomplished, and whose romantic history was a complete blank slate. I pretended not to care, but a part of me was worried about whether she would mind my past. But on the way there, she didn't ask a single question about it. We just talked about work. Her insights actually helped me solve a few problems I'd been stuck on. Isabella really was an incredible person. Looking at her beautiful profile, listening to the calm, gentle tone of her voice, a question kept nagging at me. Did she really not mind? That night at the Sterling estate, her parents greeted me with their usual warmth and gratitude. After dinner, Isabella's assistant arrived with a file. Isabella took it and said calmly, "Mom, Dad, I'd like to transfer my shares in Sterling Corp to Ethan. Do you have any objections?" I stared at her in shock. Sterling Corp was at its peak, and her 60% stake gave her controlling interest. It was worth billions. More than that, Sterling Corp was her masterpiece, the result of her blood, sweat, and tears. She had even said in an interview that she considered the company her child. And now she was just handing it over to me? To my surprise, her parents had no objections. "Should I transfer my shares to Ethan as well?" her father asked. "I'll do whatever your mother does," her mother replied. Isabella signed the document. "It's up to you." She handed the papers to me. "Ethan, would you like to go for a walk?" The autumn air in the garden was filled with the sweet scent of jasmine, carried on the evening breeze. Her voice was as soft as the breeze. "Ethan, I can tell you've been upset since that man showed up. Everyone has a past. Those experiences are what made us who we are today. But whatever pain you went through before, I want you to know it's over. We're gonna spend the rest of our lives together. The future is what matters. I want you to feel secure. From now on, I'll be working for you." I laughed, but my eyes stung a little. I asked her seriously, "So, the fact that I was in a 7-year relationship before this, you really don't mind? Just one?" "Of course I don't mind," she said, her expression turning serious. "Actually, I've had many relationships myself." I blinked. I thought she was married to her work. "They were all secret," she said, shaking her head with mock seriousness. "When I was starting out, I was young and aggressive. I made a lot of enemies in the business world. I'm sure many of them still think about me." She added, "As in, they think about how much they hate me." I burst out laughing. So the serious, almost robotic Isabella had this playful side to her. And I knew this side of her was just for me. She was trying to cheer me up. Isabella was showing me a side of her she showed no one else. As the moonlight washed over us, the weight in my chest lifted, and I felt lighter than I had in years. Isabella looked at me and asked softly, "Can I kiss you?" We were standing close, and the faint, pleasant scent of her perfume mingled with the jasmine in the air. I felt no hesitation. I smiled and closed my eyes. A moment later, her lips met mine, a kiss as soft as a feather. She wrapped her arms around my waist and rested her head on my chest. "When you feel you're ready," she murmured, "let's get married." I could feel her heart beating against my chest, strong and a little fast. For some reason, it made me feel completely at peace. Okay, they say a good relationship helps you become a better person. After last night, I felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I felt refreshed. I woke up early as usual and went for a morning run with Michael. We had grown up together. Our family homes were right next to each other. He had tried so hard to talk me out of leaving all those years ago that it almost ended our friendship. I was so glad I hadn't lost him. As we ran, Michael kept glancing at me. "What's up?" I touched my face. I was pretty sure I'd washed it before I left the house. "Ethan, you look great today. It's like you're a new person," he said. Then he leaned in and whispered, "Did you too? You know?" My face flushed. "We kissed." "That's it," Michael said, feigning shock. "Wow, Isabella really is an overachiever. Can't wait to see what happens when you two are officially official." We laughed as we continued our run. I remembered when I first got back to New York. Michael had rushed over to see me, and his eyes had welled up when he saw me. "Ethan, you've gotten so thin." His hesitation told me he didn't just mean I'd lost weight. He meant I looked worn out. During that time, I had been so consumed by insecurity that I had completely forgotten how to take care of myself. I was a wreck. It's true what they say about relationships needing to be nurtured. Now, I was happy with where I was. After my run, I showered, had breakfast, and headed to the office early as usual. As a new hire, I had a lot to learn, so I made it a habit to be the first one in. But today, someone had beaten me to it. "Ethan," Chloe was standing in the doorway to my office, her face a mask of fury. "I told you I would come find you and explain everything. How could you do this?" I had a pretty good idea why she was here. I looked at her calmly. "What did I do?" "Leo got a call last night. He's been fired. He said it was you." I had no desire to get into it with her. HR should have given him a clear reason for his termination. If you have questions, you should take it up with them, not me. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do." She didn't move, just stared at me. Finally, as if making a great concession, she said, "Stop going after Leo, and I'll marry you. Promise. I'll have you transferred to my team, and I'll move Leo to a different department. After we're married, I'll cut off all contact with him." "Is that what you want to hear?" I finally lost my patience. "Chloe, when are you going to get it through your head? We are broken up. I'm not going to marry you. And as for Leo being fired, he brought that on himself." Chloe froze, clearly not expecting me to refuse. "I said I'll marry you. Isn't that what you've always wanted?" she asked, a hint of panic in her eyes. She even reached out as if to feel my forehead. "Are you in shock?" "Ethan, I said I'll marry you." I pushed her hand away. "I've already made myself clear. I'm not going to repeat myself. If you don't leave now, I'm calling security." I turned to hit the panic button, but Leo lunged out from around the corner and blocked my way. His eyes were wide and bloodshot, as if he hadn't slept all night. He looked unhinged. "Ethan, you've always been in love with Chloe, right? I'm giving you a chance here. I told her to marry you. How long are you going to keep up this act? Just say yes." His voice had a desperate, paranoid edge. "Marry her, and then get her to stop the company from firing me. If you don't, I'll tell everyone your dirty little secret." He lunged towards me as if to shake me. "Just agree to marry her. I moved to step away, but Chloe stepped between us. What secret? I couldn't see her face, but her back was rigid, and her voice was tight with tension. Leo ignored her, his eyes fixed on me. This is your last chance. Say yes. Don't try to compete with me. I didn't answer him. I just reached past him and pressed the security alarm. What secret? Chloe demanded, grabbing Leo's wrist. You're hurting me. But Chloe, who had always been so sensitive to his every whim, didn't seem to hear him. She just repeated, what did Ethan do? They struggled with each other, a pathetic sight. I just watched, feeling nothing. The last flicker of hope in Leo's eyes died out. He finally believed that I was really done with Chloe. Then, his expression twisted into something even more manic. Chloe, do you know why Ethan doesn't want you anymore? Because he's a kept man. He's sleeping with Isabella Sterling. His eyes were wild with regret. I never should have told you she likes men with long eyelashes. You must have found out and deliberately went to the garage to seduce her yesterday. If only I had gone a little earlier. I spent days casing that place to make sure everything was perfect. If I had been there earlier, that would have been me in the car with her. Why isn't she more selective? How could she not mind someone like you? Why? I told her all about your past, and she still fired me for you? I worked so hard to get close to her. Why would she do this to me? I had never seen Leo so completely unraveled. He was a far more pathetic sight than I had ever been in my worst moments. Chloe slowly released her grip on him. She turned to me, her eyes bloodshot. Is it true? I don't believe you. She reached for my hand. Come with me. I pulled my hand away. Security arrived just then. Recognizing her, they were polite but firm. Director Chloe, please, let's talk this out calmly. There's no need for this. Chloe didn't even glance at the guard. Her eyes were locked on me. Ethan, why aren't you answering me? Is it true? How could you do this? So that's how you got this job. You were sleeping with her? Were you with her this whole time? Is that why you broke up with me? After all these years, how could you just throw it all away? But her anger quickly dissolved into grief, her voice cracking. After all these years, how could you just not want us anymore? More employees were starting to arrive, and a small crowd was gathering, their faces a mixture of curiosity and concern as they watched the three of us. Leo, who had been quiet for a moment, suddenly started shouting to the crowd. You want to know what's going on? We're confronting a homewrecker. This is Ethan from Design Team A. He's sleeping with… Chloe clapped a hand over his mouth, hissing, Stop it, Leo. This is between me and Ethan. You're going to ruin his life. He bit down hard on her hand, drawing blood. He shoved her away. You're right. I do want to ruin him. He ruined my dream first. He scrambled into the crowd where Chloe couldn't reach him. Ethan from Design Team A is a shameless homewrecker. He was just an admin before this. He slept his way into this company. And because I found out, he had his sugar mama fire me. He's the one who should be fired. Everyone, tell me I'm not crazy. I had never seen a face so twisted with hate. His lies, his twisting of the truth, it was utterly shameless. But to my surprise, no one in the crowd seemed to be buying it. I know Ethan, someone said. The head of marketing was just praising him the other day. Said he's a really talented new designer. Hey, watch what you say about our team, another person chimed in. Ethan might be new, but he works harder than anyone. He's the first one here every morning, and he's always willing to help out on projects just for the experience. Who do you think you're fooling? Isn't that Leo from Team B? Someone else whispered. He's notorious. He's only been here a few weeks and he's already messed up multiple projects. Him getting fired is the best news I've heard all week. Exactly. Who even spreads rumors like this anymore? Leo clearly hadn't expected this reaction. He tried to argue, but his voice was drowned out by the murmurs of the crowd. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he pointed towards the end of the hall. Ms. Sterling, she's the one sleeping with him. The sound of steady footsteps approached, and Isabella, dressed in a sharp business suit, walked down the hall and stopped beside me. The faint, familiar scent of her perfume instantly calmed my frayed nerves. She looked at me, her eyes asking a silent question, and I realized we were on the same page. I understood what she was asking, and I nodded. It's true that Ethan and I are together, Isabella said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried an authority that silenced the room. The crowd fell silent for a beat, then erupted into a flurry of whispers. Leo's voice was the loudest. See, I told you, he's a homewrecker, a shameless homewrecker. But soon, the crowd's murmurs drowned him out. What, Ethan and Ms. Sterling? She's not married, so how can he be a homewrecker? He's her boyfriend. Maybe, You know, they actually look really good together. I ship it. Did anyone else notice she called him Ethan? She's usually so formal. That sounded almost tender. Man, I'm so jealous of Ethan. What did he do in a past life to get so lucky? Leo listened, incredulous, his voice cracking as he yelled, even if he's not a homewrecker, he's still a gold digger, a kept man. Why would someone from a family like hers be interested in a former admin? A guy who was just, ow! Leo cried out, clutching his face. Isabella had taken a folder from her assistant and thrown it squarely at him. The corner of his mouth split open, and he gasped in pain, silenced. If there is any keeping in our relationship, Isabella said, putting an arm around my shoulders, it is I who am being kept by him, because Ethan is the chairman of the board of Sterling Corporation. I'm merely working for him. She turned to look at me, her eyes soft. Isn't that right, my fiancé? Just as she finished speaking, a group of people, including her parents and several lawyers, approached from down the hall. We just came to transfer some shares to our son-in-law, Mrs. Sterling announced. We didn't expect to walk into such a drama. Mrs. Sterling surveyed the crowd, her presence commanding. The Sterling and Anderson families arranged this marriage long ago. That Ethan agreed to marry our Isabella is a blessing for our family. If I hear anyone spreading rumors about this again, they will be fired on the spot. The crowd was stunned into silence. So Ethan is an Anderson? The real estate Andersons? He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth and he still works this hard? I think I have a crush. No wonder Ms. Sterling is with him. They're both in a different league. They're perfect for each other. Impossible, Leo yelled, his mouth full of blood. I don't believe it. Ethan, you were nothing. How could you be so lucky? Stop it. Just stop it, Chloe cried, pulling at his arm. She looked at me, her expression a whirlwind of emotions. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Mr. Sterling pointed at Leo. Get him out of here, he told security, and make sure he's blacklisted from the entire industry. You can't do that, Leo screamed. I was hired through the spousal accommodation program. I have a master's degree from a prestigious university. You can't fire me over a personal issue. I'll go to the press. I'll expose you. Leo knew he had lost. His pathetic little schemes had failed to win Isabella's heart, and his dream of marrying into the family was shattered. A new, calculating glint appeared in his eyes. You want me to go quietly? Fine, but you'll have to pay me, a sum that I find satisfactory. Otherwise, I'll go to the media and tell them how Sterling Corp violates labor laws and fires employees without cause. I hear you're in the middle of negotiating a major deal right now. A little bad press at this crucial moment could be very costly, couldn't it? The more he spoke, the more confident he became. As for the amount, I'll discuss it with Ms. Sterling, in private. Seeing the greedy light in his eyes, I realized he still hadn't given up. He was still delusional enough to think that if he could just get her alone, he could make her fall for him. I looked at him, his mouth bloody, his face a mask of pathetic greed, and I thought back to the first time I met him. Chloe had dragged me along to pick him up from the airport. He had taken off his sunglasses, looked me up and down, and chuckled. So you really did find a look-alike. He had been so arrogant then, so sure of himself. Now, there was only a desperate, vulgar madness in his eyes. The contrast was jarring even to me. I couldn't imagine what Chloe must be feeling. She was staring at him, her eyes filled with disappointment and confusion, as if she was wondering where the boy she had loved for so many years had gone. Maybe he, like the version of her I had once loved, had simply been lost to time. Isabella didn't say a word. She just glanced at the HR director who had hurried over. Ms. Sterling, the director said, we've confirmed it. Leo's master's degree is fraudulent. He was enrolled in the program, but was expelled shortly after for disciplinary reasons. The falsified credentials alone are grounds for immediate termination. The calculating, smug expression on Leo's face vanished, and his face went pale. The onlookers sensed a shift in the drama. Someone leaned over to peek at the report in the HR director's hands. Disciplinary reasons? It says here he was expelled after his sugar daddy's wife showed up on campus and caused a huge scandal. Are you serious? No wonder he was so quick to accuse Ethan of the same thing. He was just projecting. Look at this part. He also has massive gambling debts. That's why he came back here, to run from his creditors. Chloe whipped her head around to face him, her eyes wide with disbelief. So the money you borrowed from me, the money you said was for a business investment, you used it to pay off gambling debts? You never intended to pay me back, did you? For the first time, She looked at him with an expression of pure disgust and disappointment. Leo, how could you be so cruel? I hurt Ethan so many times for you, and you were just lying to me the whole time. I didn't lie to you, Leo sneered, completely unrepentant. You were just stupid. Who's to blame for that? Do you think I would have wasted my time on you if I hadn't heard from an old classmate that you could get a job for your spouse at Sterling Corp? If my plan had worked, I would have been set for life. $1 million would have been nothing. I could have given you 10 million, but you're the one who couldn't hold on to your man. He was ready to marry you, and you let him get away. If you hadn't, he wouldn't have been in my way. His words were cruel and heartless, but Chloe didn't argue. She slowly turned to look at me, her eyes filled with a sad, hopeless expression. He's right, she murmured. That money, it was supposed to be for a down payment on a house with Ethan, but I lost him. You lost more than just that, the HR director said coldly. Chloe, during your time as director of Design Team B, you repeatedly covered for Leo's mistakes, reassigning his unfinished work to other team members and forcing them to work overtime. That alone is a gross misuse of your authority. More importantly, 3 days ago, a design submitted by Leo was found to be plagiarized from one of our competitors. You failed to catch it. In fact, in your haste to promote him, you sent it directly to the client. The client has since discovered the plagiarism and is terminating their contract with us. You have caused significant financial and reputational damage to this company. In light of your previous excellent record at our other branch, we are giving you the opportunity to resign. Chloe listened in silence. I expected her to argue, to beg for a second chance. I knew how much her career meant to her, but she just nodded calmly. Okay, I brought this on myself. I'll submit my resignation immediately. And with that, the whole ugly spectacle was over. The crowd dispersed, and everyone went back to their desks to start the day. I didn't pay much attention to what happened to Chloe and Leo after that. The company had legal and HR departments to handle it. The revelation of my identity did make things a little awkward with my colleagues at first. But remembering how they had defended me that morning, and how well we had worked together, I knew the awkwardness would pass. But as I was leaving work that day, I saw Leo and Chloe in a heated argument outside the building. Chloe, don't go to Ethan. I forbid it. You used to care about me more than anyone. I'm ready now. We can be together. Okay? Chloe shook him off, her eyes filled with disgust. Now I finally understand how Ethan must have felt, to be treated like a consolation prize. It's so humiliating. Leo, I was in love with you for years. The you I loved was the boy on the playground with the clear eyes who smiled at me from across the crowd. You were so proud, so disciplined. Even though you rejected me, I still wanted to be near you, to be good to you. When you came back, I was torn. I had a feeling you weren't that boy anymore. But you gave me hope, and after all those years of obsession, I didn't want to let go of that chance. I see it now. I wasn't in love with you. I was in love with the memory of a crush I never got over. I haven't loved you for a very long time. Her voice was filled with regret, but Leo couldn't accept it. He had always assumed Chloe would be his fallback, that she would always be there waiting for him. His dream of marrying into wealth was shattered. Chloe had rejected him, and he was drowning in debt. He snapped, "You're leaving me too? I won't let you. If you're leaving, we're leaving together." He grabbed her and tried to pull her into the street. Chloe managed to break free, but he was hit by an oncoming car. Leo survived, but he would spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. And Chloe, after disappearing for 2 weeks, showed up to see me one last time. "Ethan, I know there's no chance for us anymore. I wanted to say a proper goodbye." She looked exhausted, but her clothes were neat and clean. She was wearing a white dress, the same one she had worn the day we first met. So much time had passed. She was no longer the girl who had taken my breath away all those years ago. But seeing the pleading look in her eyes, I realized we had never really had a proper goodbye. The last time I had tried to break up with her, she hadn't believed I was serious. Okay, I agreed. A 7-year relationship deserved a real ending. We sat across from each other in a coffee shop. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "I just want to ask one question. If Leo had never come back, would you have married me?" I took a sip of my coffee. It was bitter, but with a sweet aftertaste. "Yes," I said. "Even after he came back, if you had chosen me, the answer would have been yes. But there are no what-ifs in life." My voice was calm. I had truly, finally let her go. She seemed surprised by my direct answer, and her eyes welled up with tears. She blinked back tears, her voice trembling. "The truth is, I think I fell in love with you a long time ago, and I was just too blind to see it. I regret losing you more than anything. I'm so sorry. I won't bother you again. She stood up abruptly, but paused after a few steps. Ethan, she said, I hope you'll be happy. Then she turned and walked quickly away, her shoulders shaking. I knew she was crying. She probably did regret it, but some things can't be undone. This was the price she had to pay for her indecision. The chapter of my life with Chloe was finally, completely over. A year later, Isabella and I were married. She insisted on a prenuptial agreement that stated if she ever wronged me, she would walk away with nothing. At our wedding, our friends and family teased us, asking if we were happy. Isabella looked into my eyes and smiled. I married the boy with the long eyelashes who looked like he was straight out of a storybook, the one who gave me a piece of candy when I was 5 years old. I married the only man I have ever loved. Of course I'm happy. I couldn't hide my surprise. So when she said she liked men with long eyelashes, she had been talking about me all along. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I guess I cared too much. I was afraid if I told you and you rejected me, we couldn't even be friends. But luckily, it all worked out. Ethan, from now on, I want to spend every moment of every day with you. Amidst the applause, we kissed. It was a long, sweet kiss. I smiled and whispered, "You're a great kisser. I really like it." She laughed too. Is my husband this easy to please? I was, but only because I was in love.